guys were known as the New Atheists, so I was part of that movement of the faculty advisor at the University of Georgia for 2 years of that organization. And really kind of went as far in that direction as I think a person can go in terms of trying to be convinced of this alternate worldview. Long story short, really ran into some philosophical problems with atheism. The things that atheism would support that I found to contradict reality. Things like free choice, things like true moral fact, shall we say. Read the Gospels with fresh eyes, and there through reading the Gospel of John, that I would say God impressed upon me in a very profound way the person and the work of Jesus. It's all very clearly. For me, it was John, and a lot of people have the same story. For me, it was John 11, where Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. Y'all familiar with that story? It's right about a week before Jesus goes to the cross, and then later rises. And before Jesus raises Lazarus, he has an interaction with Mary and Martha, who are the sisters of Lazarus. And Jesus has this discussion with Martha, and Martha says, "Hey, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died." They knew Jesus was a miracle worker. They knew he could work miracles. And their thinking was, hey, we sent for you. You didn't come. You got here too late. You got here a few days too late. Now our brother's dead. He's rotting in this grave right here. And did Jesus have this interaction? He says, if you believe, you'll see the power of God. And then Jesus goes on to share with Martha. He says these words. Here's what got to me. I would say here's what the Holy Spirit of God used to really change my mind. In John 11:25, Jesus, one of the great I am statements of Jesus in the Gospel of John. I think there's 7 of them. Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. I am the resurrection and life. Whoever believes in me shall live even if he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Then he asked, Martha, do you believe this? And what occurred to me when I was reading that in that moment was Jesus is making a claim not about his power, but about his identity. It's not who I am. Right? Not I have the power to raise the dead, but my identity. That's who I am. I am resurrection. I am life. You were talking about some of the other religious beliefs of the world. I don't see anything like this. Survey of any other religion. I can't tell you what Zoroastrianism teaches, right? But I know Muhammad didn't make a claim like that. Muhammad said, I'm a prophet of Allah. He didn't say things like, I'm the living bread that came down from heaven. He didn't say, I'm the light of the world. He didn't make statements like that. He would have considered those, I believe, blasphemous, right? Jesus was accused of blasphemy by many people. Here's the difference. He was actually able to back up his claims by doing some things that only a person who truly had that identity could do. So the ultimate backing that Jesus provided for this radical claim that he is resurrection life, what was it? It was he lays his life down, and 3 days later, through the power of the Holy Spirit, he raises himself to life. Raised to life. So I understand that to be something that is unique to Jesus. I talk to skeptics like I once was, and they say, well, don't you know that these other religions of the world have this resurrection motif? Kind of like the Phoenix, bursts into flames, the ashes fall, and out of the ashes rises a new life. And the ancient Egyptians, they had Osiris and Set and Horus. Horus was supposedly raised from the dead. I'm like, okay, guys, nobody believed that this was a real person. Nobody, when they depicted Horus, they depicted a dude with a falcon head. Right? Nobody thought this was some real guy walking around. With Jesus, it was claims about a real person that could be corroborated and triangulated in history. So that kind of blew me away, and I'm like, okay, well, I believe God raised Jesus from the dead. I guess I'll never be an atheist anymore. Went through a period of life of about 2 or 3 years of doing something I wouldn't recommend to anyone, which is being a cultural Christian, being convinced that Jesus was the Son of God, rose from dead in my head, but I was still living largely for myself. And God has a way of working those things out in time, right? God has a way of sometimes enacting some, in my case, many other people, kind of, how would you say it? Kind of like kicking our rear ends, right? Bringing a judgment into my life that I needed so that I would truly surrender my life and obey Him.